I am Brodie Lawson. I'm so excited to be hosting today's Brunch and Bet. Guys, in 2020, we saw the Kentucky Derby postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But this Saturday, May 1st, the 147th chapter of the Run for the Roses goes from Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. And as racing fans, we are so ready for this. Essential Quality is, of course, the heavy favorite going into Saturday's race and enters undefeated, but there are tons of great storylines that go beyond the favorite, including some Canadian and Woodbine connections. We're going to get into all of that along with how we think you guys should play the race. We're going to talk some Derby lore and traditions, and we've got a really amazing group for you today. I can't wait to welcome them in and let them drop their knowledge today. First, Jason, hello. Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from, I'll say the Toronto GTA just to make it easier. Been locked down for so long now. This is my home, my basement. So I'm looking forward to just getting out hopefully soon, Brodie. But yeah, glad to be a part of today's show. Thanks for the invite.
Jason is, of course, a familiar face to Woodbine fans. Everyone around the GTA knows him well. We're thrilled you're with us, Jason. Ashley, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from South Florida, not usually where I am this time of year. Recently moved down here, so I'm just a couple miles down the street from Gulfstream Park.
Beautiful. And for our fans that don't know you well, tell us kind of what you do and your expertise.
The last couple of years, it's been a little bit of everything. The last 3 years, I've been the analyst at Fort Erie Racetrack, so not too far from Woodbine. And then I freelanced a bunch, but recently I took a job for First Racing, so all the Stronach tracks, and I'm based out of Gulfstream Park as a project lead, but you may catch me occasionally on the simulcast feed too.
Oh, amazing. We're thrilled you're with us, Ashley. And Dan, hello. I think our fans know you well too. How are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm doing well. It's good to see everyone here. I'm in New York, home of the Belmont Stakes, the third leg of the Triple Crown. We still got a little time for that. But I here in New York, I work for America's Best Racing. I'm a correspondent. I do a lot of live video like this. I do a lot of handicapping. So hopefully I could impart a little bit of wisdom, if you want to call it that, and maybe get lucky this weekend. So really excited to be here, and thanks for having me on.
I mean, you guys look sharp, by the way. Like, everybody looks sharp, but I was reminded with Dan's fedora and his bow tie, I'm like, Dan looks sharp. And Julie also looks sharp. Julie, we're so happy to have you back. You guys remember Julie from Brunch and Bet last year. Julie, tell us what you're up to and where you're calling from.
Yes, thanks guys so much for having me on. It is amazing to be back talking horse racing. I'm also in New York. I'm in Manhattan, and I host a show called Drinks with Binks. That's my last name, Stewart-Binks. And so I interview various entertainers, athletes over a beverage of their choice. So I've got a mint julep that is currently dripping all over the place, but that's what we're dealing with in the pandemic right now. And I like to have a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to be able to have some fun and talk some Kentucky Derby today.
Yeah, we're all ready with our brunching. We hope you guys are joining in with some maybe some coffee, maybe a mimosa. Who knows what's it's pandemic times. Whatever goes. Anything goes these days. Whatever you want. So, I mean, when we think about the Kentucky Derby, this is really one of those events and sporting events that transcend sports, right? This is the intersection of tradition and fashion and great legendary sports and history. And so I'm curious for you guys, what makes this event for you kind of stand out as kind of the pinnacle of horse racing, but in a way, it really does encapsulate that, you know, pinnacle of major sporting events in general. And Dan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, it's definitely the race that everyone in the sport wants to win. And from my perspective, as someone who loves the analysis of the race and who loves the handicapping part, since there's 20 horses in it, it's always the most challenging race to try to predict and figure out how it's going to unfold. So I think there's just so much drama in it. And I think for a lot of people, your first memory of racing is probably of watching it with someone you know who introduced you to it. And for a lot of people, it's the Kentucky Derby was the first race. For me, it was 1989 Sunday Silence, winning the Kentucky Derby. I remember watching it with my dad and just thinking it was so cool, and picking horses with him. And every year he'd give me a list of all the horses, and I'd pick the one that I thought would win. Mostly lost, but it's just. That's what it is. It's kind of those memories that start out for the Derby. And like I said, everybody in this race, the jockeys, the trainers, the owners, it's just the ultimate goal, and it's so exciting when they can actually win it.
Yeah, and Julie, you're coming at this too from someone who covers all different sports. I mean, you've worked in sports broadcasting for years and years. So for you, what stands out about the Derby as kind of a major event?
Well, sort of on the heels of what Dan said, like this is almost, it's like the first day of school. It's the first episode of The Bachelor. Like we don't know who is the favorite yet in terms of anyone can win the Triple Crown at this point. So it has that air of excitement, and especially this year, which we'll get to later, but there isn't like a Bob Baffert horse that stands out amongst the rest, which seems to be the thing that's happened in the past. But of course, it's also all about the pomp and circumstance. I've got my fascinator on here today. The wonderful woman, Christine Moore, lent this to me. She's a Milner who's being featured at the Kentucky Derby. And then, of course, you have your libations, your mint juleps. It's really one of those events that has all of the flamboyance and the air and the excitement, more so than some of the other races. So that's why maybe it is a memory for a lot of young people that it stands out, because it's the first one and it is definitely the most flashy.
And I was thinking today, is the mint julep the OG signature cocktail? Like,
yes,
can we
hands down, yes.
Right?
Not for me. Mm-hmm. I got a Jason julep here because I don't do mint, I don't do bourbon. So this is dark rum, a little bit of pineapple juice, a little bit of mango juice. That's all you need. So it's the Jason julep, and I'll be more than glad to deliver them to you guys personally in time for next year's edition of this Brunch and Bet. How about that? I'm going to Florida and New York.
I think that's the official drink of the Woodbine Mile, isn't it?
Yeah.
There you go. I like it, Dan. I like it.
If it wasn't before, it is now. Jason, you cover the sport every single day. So for you, where does this kind of rank amongst the other races this year?
Right at the top. And I mean, I've covered Super Bowls, I've covered Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA championships, World Series, you name it. But for me, I love this because it's the one race where I don't have to explain to people what it is, because a lot of people don't know enough about horse racing, but they know the Kentucky Derby. Everybody knows the Derby, the most exciting 2 minutes in sports, as it's been dubbed. Watching 170,000 plus cram into that racetrack to see American Pharoah do his thing back in the day. That was something to see. So just the fact that it's the one day where even if you're not a huge racetrack supporter, fan, you want to be there, you want to watch it, you want to wager on it. So it's the one day where we steal the sporting spotlight. And for me, that's why I love the Kentucky Derby. And oh, by the way, I know I'm on with a bunch of Americans, if you will, Julie. You know what I'm saying. The Queen's Plate, by the way, has been around a lot longer than the Derby. Just saying, it is the longest continuously raced stakes event in North America. Just saying.
But Ashley, for you, you're down like amongst horse people right now. Unfortunately, we're not up here in Canada. What's the buzz been like down there?
I think at Gulfstream Park, we're all rooting kind of for known agenda coming out of the Florida Derby. That's probably the big hype, but it's exciting. I mean, to have a couple of the races for the prep races down here and to attend them with limited fans was exciting. But the Derby's just something, I think, if you're a novice or you're a diehard like a bunch of us are, it's something to get excited about. And I know Jason touched upon it. It's the greatest 2 minutes in sports, but I think what also makes it great, it's not just the months that go up to the lead up, all the preparation. It's that when people have this dream of winning the Derby, it starts way before the horse is even born, and the ride and all that stuff that can happen over the course of a couple of years. Just to see it all come together and to get a chance in the starting gate, it's got to be a great experience for the owners and everyone involved, and just for us as fans too.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? And when we look at kind of how to play the Derby, I mean, Julie and I have talked about this on previous Brunch and Bet shows. It's like, how do you approach this? Like, if you're someone like Dan, you love the handicapping and you're like diving right in. And for the more casual fan, maybe it's a storyline that's kind of looping, that's kind of got your interest peaked in a certain horse. And so for me, that's often the way that my betting will go, if I'm being totally honest. But I'm curious for you guys, what storylines you've been following, what's excited you as this has approached. And Jason, I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, handicapping. I'm with Dan. I mean, you don't have to twist my arm to get me to wager on a race. And it's just a little bit more exciting when you wager than instead of just watching. But
definitely,
in terms of storylines, obviously you have a bunch of gripping, stories that sort of, lead you into this race and have you leaning towards maybe that person winning. But the trainer aspect is really intriguing because Julie, brought up a great point. Baffert's kind of the forgotten guy this year. He's got a record-tying 6 when it comes to training victories. He still has a shot, but it's not the usual type of Baffert shot because Life is Good went down, as did the Concert Tour. So he's left with his third stringer in Medina Spirit. So having said that, there are a bunch of trainers that are trying to win their first. And you look at Chad Brown, he's perennial leading trainer in terms of North America victories, purses, wins, Eclipse Awards, everything else like that. Has never won one. Brad Cox, same thing. He's won a lot of big races. Has never won one. Steve Asmussen, never won one. Vicky Oliver, a female trainer, trying to become the first to win one. So for me, I really want to keep an eye on that angle, and I really feel like somebody's going to get there first. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. I look at Essential Quality, and he's kind of that but horse for me. He'll probably win the Triple Crown, and I'll be, but I don't know. So maybe I'm wrong, but I'm really keeping an eye on the trainers, guys. I really think that somebody's going to get that. That finally get that feel-good moment. Not trying to slight Essential Quality and the connections there, but I really feel like somebody's going to get that feel-good moment. Maybe it is Brad Cox. We're going to find out, but I feel like somebody's going to get that first that hasn't been able to get one yet.
Julie, I can hear you nodding along. Why don't you jump in? What are you following?
Yeah, honestly, this isn't necessarily the horse that I'm going to put a lot of money on, but I love the storyline of Hot Rod Charlie that's 8-1 odds. 5 former college football players that decided to go in on this horse, buy this horse sort of as like a brotherhood to keep them together, which is very interesting. You heard them all wooing, cheering at, the post draw. But then what's interesting is Paul O'Neill, one of these guys, they all went to Brown University. His are Doug O'Neill and Dennis O'Neill. So Doug O'Neill was the trainer of I'll Have Another and Nyquist, both former Kentucky Derby winners. Dennis O'Neill is a great scout. He actually helped them find this horse that was a 1-year-old horse from a sale, which normally wouldn't do, but said he had like a brilliant mind. So they also, though, have this philanthropic aspect to it, is that unfortunately, Paul O'Neill's father and one of his other uncles passed away from melanoma. And so they have them as like their 6th man, and they're donating a 1/6 of their earnings from here and going forward to the Melanoma Research Alliance. So it is just like one of these really interesting stories that also has a feel-good aspect to it.
Oh, I love that, Julie. I didn't actually know that. That's so good. For anyone who's looking for like a little out there shot, I mean, not that that horse is particularly, off people's minds, but still. Ashley, what about you?
Jason touched upon just trainers kind of in the hunt for their first win, but to me, it's just a head scratcher and kind of shocking that you see some of the trainers in here have never had a Kentucky Derby starter. Wesley Ward's one that sticks out for me, just knowing that I feel like he wins left and right. And when you kind of check the results, you always see Wesley Ward won this stakes race, or he won with 2-year-olds. The fact that this is going to be his first Kentucky Derby starter, I found that to be cool. And then just looking at some other trainers and stories in here, I think Steve Asmussen's horse, Superstock, I think that's a really cool story, just based on, the horse took a couple starts to break his maiden, and his son rode the horse, and his parents, I should say, are part co-owners in the horse. So it's a whole family experience, and he's one who is looking for his Derby win. He's had a couple second place finishes. I think the most recent was a couple years back with Looking at Lee. But there's a lot of firsts, not even just first wins, but first starts in the Kentucky Derby from trainers that I was kind of surprised. Like, you start thinking, oh, did they have a starter? And you're like, wow, they didn't. It's just baffling.
You gotta think it means so much more, right? Like, I'm always rooting for, and I want to stay away from using the term underdog, because none of these people are really underdogs. They're all, kind of at the pinnacle of their career, but still, like, just love to watch anyone break through and get that first win. Dan, what about you? Are you coming at this purely from wagering like Jason, or are there any other storylines you're looking at?
No, I love the storylines. And in fact, sometimes when I lose, because I just spent all this time analyzing the race and not thinking about like all of the other spiritual aspects that clearly impacted the results. No, there are a couple of things that I love going into this race. Ashley mentioned Superstock and the family connection with the Asmussen family. The other thing that's interesting about that horse is that horse was supposed to go into a sale last year and be sold, but that didn't happen because of COVID. The sale was canceled. So they only have the horse because of the pandemic, and now they have an opportunity to win the biggest race in the world with him. So I think that's a cool aspect of that story as well. And then the other one, just from a drama perspective, you've already heard, me and Julie are in New York. There's a horse named Brooklyn Strong. So keep that in mind for a moment. There's also a horse named Rock Your World. Now, Rock Your World won the Santa Anita Derby. He won the race with a jockey named Umberto Rispoli. So an Italian guy, like truly Italian, not like, a couple of generations, like Italian, like just came in from Italy a couple of years ago. 32 years old. Was so happy that he won this race on Rock Your World. He was crying. He was emotional. He was like, oh my God, we're going to the Derby. But wait, a couple of weeks ago, the owner and trainer announced they're not going to allow him to ride Rock Your World. They chose another jockey. They chose a jockey named Joel Rosario, who actually won the Kentucky Derby in 2013. So they're going with a jockey with more experience. So like womp womp, really sad. Rispoli has no ride. But wait, Brooklyn Strong is a late entry into the Derby, and now you have a horse named Brooklyn Strong with an Italian rider. I mean, how perfect is that? Like, I mean, an Italian riding Brooklyn Strong wasn't going to ride this race after the disappointment. I think that story is one that I would love to see. I just love to see them sort of 1-2, down to the wire. I think that'd be really cool to see.
With Rispoli on top, though.
Yeah. I mean, how cool would that be if he did win?
Payback's a beauty, right?
Like, these are all great stories. Mine was a little less heartfelt, so I'm feeling a little insecure, but I'm gonna roll with it anyway. Have you guys heard of Mattress Mac?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Do you know about this?
Ace handicapper.
Big handicapper, big sports betting guy, big handicapper. And Mattress Mac lives down in the States, and he owns basically a Houston furniture store. And he's got a promotion on where he is going to bet $2 million.
Oh, yes.
$2 million. Yes. On essential quality. Okay? Now, he has this promotion going on that basically, if you buy a mattress that's valued at $3,000 or more, you get your money back if essential quality wins on Saturday. Now, he says that he's going to bet $2 million, but it might go up to $4 million if he needs to, depending on how this whole mattress thing works out. But of course, as a big handicapper, he's worried about making sure he doesn't tip the odds too much, of course. He just wants to make sure that that's not going to be an issue. But I was dying over this storyline. So if
it's an expensive mattress, by the way.
Yeah. I know. I thought so too. Like, how many mattresses are there for $2,000? Is this like a regular thing? I don't know. I'm confused. Probably those ones that
Mattress Mac would bet on what's inside of my mug right now if we allowed him to, just so you know.
He's a great guy, I love it.
But he bets on everything.
Yep.
Kills me. I'm like, well, he said basically his whole thing was, well, us bricks and mortar guy, when you've got, Amazon and all of these other online competitors, we need to find a way to get an edge. This is his edge. So you know what? Made me laugh.
Very
I thought
true.
you guys might like that. Mattress Mac. There you go.
Nice.
Might sound wacky, but he's a great guy.
Do you know? So he said?
He does a lot in the communities down in Texas. He gives a lot back. Obviously where Texas is located, there's a lot of like natural disasters and things like that. And he's always one of the first people to step in. So he really gives back in every single way. And he may make some wonky wagers here and there, but I think he's got a heart of gold.
Oh,
Nice.
I love that. I love that. Well, anyone who's got that creative mind, right, that can come at it from that place, like, good for him. Ashley, with the coming in hot with the Mattress Mac knowledge, I love it. Let's talk about playing this race, because we got some people here who really know what they're doing. So I want to jump in First with Dan. How do you recommend people approach this race? This is a 20-horse field, absolutely enormous. How do you even go about starting to break this down?
So what I do when I look at just about any race, but especially this race, is to kind of look where each of the horses are positioned, sort of setting up, in the starting gate, and what their running style is. Are they a horse that has speed? Are they a horse that kind of, races off the pace? Do they race mid-pack? Are they deep closers? Are they coming from way out of it in the end? And I try to kind of plot out the race based on where they're breaking, what their running style is, also who their jockey is, kind of knowing some of the jockey tendencies. And so without getting too in the weeds with all the particulars of the various horses, what I came to when looking at this race and looking at the pace setup of this race is that I don't think they're going to be going as fast up front as they might in a normal Kentucky Derby. And for that reason, I actually like a horse trained by a guy who we've all kind of said, well, he doesn't really have a strong hand this year. I think Bafford's horse, Medina Spirit, has a legitimate shot. This is a horse who has raced on the lead in the past, won the Robert B. Lewis on the lead, and went very, very fast. In his most recent race, he lost to the horse that I mentioned a few moments ago, Rock Your World, in the Santa Anita Derby, but he wasn't really ridden, full bore in that race. He sat back, let Rock Your World do his thing. Rock Your World had his way on the front end and then went off with it. But they've sort of indicated that they're going to be a little more aggressive out of the gate. The rider is John Velasquez, who you may remember last year won not only the Derby, but also the Breeders' Cup as well, flying out of the gate on Authentic and getting to the front and staying there. So he's as good a rider as you could get in terms of settling a horse down on the lead who has speed. I think Medina Spirit is being overlooked. A lot of people, the big, kind of imposing Bob Baffert horse is not in the race, but this one's flying under the radar a little bit. So I like Medina Spirit, and I also like a horse named Highly Motivated, who we've touched on, I think, a little bit, at least in terms of talking about Chad Brown, who's a trainer who's so accomplished on the turf, is looking for his big. This would just be like the ultimate win, obviously, and would sort of establish him on the dirt here in the Kentucky Derby. This is a horse who's kind of a little bit of a late arrival on the scene as a big Derby contender, but he only lost to Essential Quality by a neck in their last race. And in fact, it looked like he was going to win for, a good portion of that race. And so to me, if you like Essential Quality, you have to like Highly Motivated. You're going to get a better price on him. And there's an argument to be made that that Highly Motivated, we still haven't seen the best of yet. Whereas with Essential Quality, we've seen what he can do. We know who he is, and he is really good. But if you like him, I think you got to like Highly Motivated as well.
That was one of my picks too, Dan. Ashley, who are you looking at, and how are you approaching this race?
I agree with Dan. I mean, when you look at horses like Essential Quality, who I've liked for his last 4 or 5 races, I mean, I've really liked him in all of his starts, to be honest, and have followed him throughout. I agree in the sense that if you like him, you have to like Highly Motivated, who I think on his most recent performance, I've elevated him. I'm not saying he's my top pick because I'll get to that one in a second, but I like his versatility as well. Kind of when I go through the field, I do the same thing as Dan, where you're just trying to figure out what you think is going to happen. There's so many factors, not even just with the things that Dan mentioned, but weather's another factor always. I think that can make this race a totally different thing than what we would expect maybe on a sunny and dry day. I mean, if there's rain, that definitely changes my handicap a little bit. And hopefully some of these horses have raced over an off going before with moisture in the track, and that'll change things. But I like Highly Motivated looking at him because he's got that versatility where, he went on the lead last time out and he was on the front end, but I don't think he needs that. I don't think he necessarily prefers it. So I'm looking at horses all over. I mean, I'm always looking for prices too. I know Dan knows me probably the best on this group right now, and he knows I'm always hunting for that price horse somewhere. And I'm still honestly looking. One horse that kind of interests me a little bit, Todd Pletcher sending out a bunch of horses in here. Dynamic One's a horse that I'm going to use underneath. I've been kind of watching his replays, and I think in some of the trips that he's gotten, they haven't been ideal for what he's been looking for. And I will say last time out, he finished second behind his stablemate. It was a good performance. But for me, I like Known Agenda. I know the big thing on Twitter right now is the post position that he drew. A lot of people hate it, don't like it. Post 1 is not ideal, but I don't think it's the end all be all for him. And I think looking at his last couple performances, the big thing is there was an equipment change. John Velasquez had mentioned about 3 starts back when he rode the horse, I think he needs blinkers. It was just, to help him focus, wearing that eyepiece where you can't really see behind you, put some focus into a horse's brain. And they put him in a race maybe to build some confidence. It wasn't a stakes race, and he crushed that field, which was a good thing to see. But I loved his performance in the Florida Derby, and I really think he started to mature a bit. The big thing about the Derby, I think, too, is just like the past performances, it's who's getting good at the right time. I mean, a horse could have had their best race last time out, but they may not improve off of that. It's all about being the best horse on the first Saturday at May, which is tough to do and tough to predict, but I'm always thinking about things like that too.
Okay, lots of good options there, and horses for people to weigh. That was another one on my list, actually. Ashley, known agenda as well. So you guys I'm like, okay, I'm doing all right so far. Julie, either of those horses in your betting plan for Saturday?
Yeah, well, what I love is what Dan mentioned about Bob Baffert's horse, Medina Spirit, because that was sort of going to be my long shot that I would put out there, because I never bet against Bill Belichick. I don't care if Tom Brady's not here. I think that Bob Baffert still has the ability to be able to pull something off. But what I do like is Rock Your World at 5-1 odds. I know he didn't race as a 2-year-old. Kind of reminds me of a high school basketball player that skips college and goes straight to the NBA, like LeBron James. So that is one that I'm definitely going to be putting some money on as well. We talk about essential quality, and it's so funny because we're like, wow, he's, two-year champion. He won 5 starts, all these like great things about him, but we're still sort of not really, someone else could win. It's almost like the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like they could be playing so well. They tick off all the boxes, slay their competition. We're like, they could still lose in the first round. What is it? It's just like a gut feeling. But the fact is that, we have all these other strong horses. And, I do like the idea of known agenda, because it does remind me of something being out of your control. Maybe it is the Raptors having to play in Tampa, or the Blue Jays having to play in Buffalo or in Florida, where, well, actually the Raptors suck this year and the Blue Jays have been doing well, but whatever, where it's not in your hands. So you still could be a good team. You'll figure it out. And it sounds as though, based on the different things that you have, the blinkers and the fact that the gate's different, I'm hearing, right? Like all these different changes, that the being against the rail isn't going to be such a big difference after all. So I'm going to be putting all my money on everyone. It seems like that you guys have been talking about.
I live for these analogies. I just wait for them. Like, we started with The Bachelor.
Make any sense.
On the sports franchise. Like, I'm here for it. Porty, what's your approach? Come on, this is a tricky one.
Well, first of all, Binksy is right, because Florida has stolen all of our professional teams, TFC, obviously the Raptors, and she's touched on the Blue Jays playing in Dunedin as well. So we got a bunch of Florida, Toronto teams, if you will. But, her pick, Rock Your World, or one of the horses she touched on anyways, the Apollo course ended 2018, Justify, ended that, you can't race as a 3-year-old for the first time and win the Derby. So Rock Your World, and Dan said it, horses like Caddo River scratching, Concert Tour scratching, it's kind of a paceless race if that one gets out front. Not that I'm cheering because of what they did to Rispoli, but, that horse could be gone. But the fact that there's a lack of pace, and I know we've kind of all touched on this horse, highly motivated, could be sitting in the catbird seat. I know according to his pedigree, he's saying, more like a mile in terms of distance. But, since he won the Nyquist, I've been on this guy's bandwagon. I got him at 24-1 in terms of the futures. So he will not be that on Saturday. And I really feel like you guys touched on it. That was a heck of a race in the Bluegrass. That was his first time going around 2 turns. And, he was just facing a horse that's, the best going into Saturday's race. So I think he's got a chance to end Chad Brown's drought, become the first horse, I do believe, from post 17 to win this race. And, he's my top pick. I think it's a wide open race because I still feel for some reason Essential Quality won't win. I don't know why I keep doubting this horse. And by the way,
it's the Leafs.
Maybe. I'm no meteorologist. But if it rains a lot on Saturday and it turns out being gooey, King Fury. I know that it wasn't the strongest of fields in the last chance Lexington, but the way he romped in the slop at Keeneland, King Fury from McPeak, and Hernandez just might be one to add into the mix. But top pick for me, highly motivated.
Love it. Well, you guys have mentioned a couple of my picks already. I'm going to go with 3 bets on Saturday. I'm going to do an exactor. I'm going to have Essential Quality up top. I'm going to get Known Agenda, who we've talked about. I'm going to get Highly Motivated in another one. And then my sort of like my dark horse pick is a sentimental pick. You guys know I'm a sucker for a sentimental story. And I've got to go with Helium. This is the kind of sentimental Woodbine choice with Mark Casse as the trainer. This race is probably going to have a lot of speed, right? But even though at 50-1, I think this horse maybe has a shot, and I would love to see Mark Casse win a Derby on Saturday. So hopefully that gives you guys some insights into how you can look at playing on Saturday. I think we've got actually quite a bit of consensus for a 20-horse field, which I'm kind of about. And before we wrap things up, I did mention at the beginning we were going to talk a little bit of Derby lore and some pomp and circumstance. I wanted to play a quick game with you guys before we wrap up.
Okay.
True or false style. I'm going to throw some questions your way. I'm not going to be keeping track. If we've got competitive people, you guys keep track. But
I'm nervous.
I think we're all going to learn something. Okay, first question. Here we go. The youngest jockey to win a Derby was just 13 years old. True or false? Oh, your faces.
I thought it was 15, but I don't know.
Jason, it's 15. You're right. So this is false. The youngest jockey was Alonzo Clayton. He was 15 and won in 1892. Jason, do you have those encyclopedic memories? That's a good one.
That was impressive.
I studied. No, just joking.
Okay, so we've talked about the youngest. Let's jump to the oldest. The oldest jockey to win the Derby was 54. True or false? Oh, I can see Dan thinking. He's like,
I know who it was.
Shoemaker,
you
right?
guys are all,
Shoemaker,
yes,
but
Shoemaker.
I want to say he was 54.
You're right. You're all right. He won.
I may or may not have waited to see everyone else put up their answers.
I'm gonna start giving one of these answers soon.
Okay, Sir Barton was the first Triple Crown winner in 1919. However, he hadn't won a race prior to the Derby. True or false? Sir Barton in 1919. It's true.
No, the second part has me confused. I'll go true.
It's true. It's true.
Brodie already said it.
I did it. Okay, let's end with a fun one. In a non-COVID year, at the Derby, 50,000 hot dogs are consumed. True or false?
At least
50,000 hot dogs. You guys, well, yes, at least 50,000. So it is technically false, but 142,000 hot dogs are consumed, along with 18,000 barbecue sandwiches, 13,800 pounds of beef, 30,000 cookies, and 300,000 strawberries. And you want to know about the mint julep? I did have one about the mint
how many
julep.
mint juleps? How much bourbon is drank at Kentucky Derby?
Okay, so we'll finish with this one. If 142,000 hot dogs are consumed at the Derby, how many mint juleps are consumed? True or false? 200,000 mint juleps are consumed at the Derby. 200,000.
I feel like it's got to be more. I'm gonna go
Taking that many hot dogs, yeah.
No, I think it'd be more than that. Yeah, it's more than that.
It is 120,000. 120,000.
Oh.
Man,
That's
Less
weak.
than that.
disappointed. Real disappointed in those folks.
What people actually drink at the Derby.
Jokes. To each
It's the
their own,
bourbon.
obviously.
Geez.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for Brunch and Bet. We hope all you guys watching picked up some good tips today about the Derby. And obviously, make sure you tune in, guys. Post time, not the broadcast, but post time is 6:57 p.m. Eastern time. Tune in on TSN5, NBC Sports, or HBI TV. It's going to be a great one. And thank you guys for joining us. This was a blast.
Yeah,
was
it's
great.
been a lot of fun.
Thank
Good
you
to
for
see you
having
guys.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, cheers.
Cheers.
Good luck.
Happy Derby.
Cheers.